This week, we're going to be talking about agility, the ability to think, understand, and move quickly. Welcome to the podcast, The Journey, with Tendai and Mayaro. All right, guys. So for today's topic, we're going to be talking about the word agility. So you'll note with the different episodes that we're going to be shooting that each one is going to be determined by a letter of the alphabet. So we're starting obviously with A, and that being agility. So I've put like a little definition to to this, and I've called it the ability to think, understand, and move quickly. So you have to be agile. You need to be able to think, understand, and move quickly. All right, so with all these episodes, I'm going to be talking about or bringing in a life story of mine, based it on university or primary school or whatever, but a lesson or an event that happened in my life that gave me certain lessons that I'm still using today, or I've used in my life to get to a certain point in time. So with agility, I'm going to start with a little bit of a backstory. Okay, yeah. So I come from a family where my mom has been a teacher for over 40 years, type of situation. It was so bad. Like, I remember one time I was crossing borders from Namibia to Zim, and some person noticed me and they're like, "Aren't you Mrs. Namayaro's son? Your mom taught me 15 years ago." And I'm like, bruh. That was crazy. But my mom has taught so many people, especially back in our hometown. Like, that happens often where you bump into a random person and my mom taught them. Okay, all good. Yeah, hippie. Hooray. But yeah, man, it's so interesting. So she was a teacher for about 40 years. My dad was a mechanic for the majority of his life, but then, as you all know, Zim took a certain turn economically at a point in time, and my dad lost his job. He was retrenched, right? So it was unfortunate, but now that I look at it as well, with who I've also become, I kind of thank that to that event happening, because it forced my dad to get into the entrepreneurial road or route. And I remember the first thing that my dad did was do chickens, which is crazy. He did chickens at the house where we stayed, and he would sell these chickens, literally, friends, family, neighborhood. He would go out to different restaurants, different shops, and he became supplier to a lot of people, right? And these chickens are what took me and my brothers through high school, and to an extent university for my eldest brother. It was crazy because the high school we went to back in Zim is called CBC, Christian Brothers College, and it was a bit pricey. Still is a bit pricey, I think now more than it was back then. But we managed to complete high school from my dad hustling with chickens, and my mom obviously was still teaching, so she also held down her bit in the family. But yeah, it was just amazing how he did so many different things. So he did chickens. At the time, he was also selling goats. So, oh man, just remembered, there's a time he was also selling like maize cobs. So obviously they're seasonal, whatever. And I remember I was still a kid. I was about yay high. I was about 5-6 years old. That's when my entrepreneurial road started, because my dad would wake me up at 2 in the morning, jump into the truck. It was one of those what is that truck? A B22, Mazda B22. Man, I love that car. And we would move from our city and drive pretty much the whole early morning and get to this place called Makwe. I think it's in Binga. I'm not too sure. Makwe, I need to find out where that is. And we'd get there early morning, 6 a.m. or whatever, or 6:30, and Okay, I'm just remembering something else from the road trip. But anyway, we'd get there 6:30, and my dad would buy dozens and dozens and dozens of mealie cobs, right? And then I would spend a couple of hours there, whatever, and fill up the truck to the brim. And then we'd come back into the town. We wouldn't even go home straight. From there, we'd go to the industrial area. So there was this certain spot where, like, literally when people knock off at or 1 o'clock from lunchtime until like 5, 6 o'clock, people are knocking off at different hours, and he would park there. So what would happen is people are passing by and buying these mealie cobs. And I remember it got to a point where I first started with just being the little kid in the back, and my dad was like, pass me 6, pass me half a dozen, pass me a dozen. So I started, knowing these things. Give them 2 dozen is 24, half a dozen is 6, type of situation. That's where it all began. And I remember it got to a point where he trusted me with giving out change. And he'd be like, Ty, for example, this man has given us 100 Rand. What's his change? And I'd calculate it. Now the thing is, dude, like, I'd calculate it in my head. Sorry, I'm saying dude and everything, but I'd calculate this in my head and give him the answer. Some get it wrong, some get it right. But it taught me how to think fast on my feet when it comes to money, especially change. You can't cheat me on change, Shem. You cannot. But yeah, so that's where pretty much it started. And he did so many other things, like he would sell goats. Yeah, man, there's just a bunch my dad did. But I really give him props for that, because growing up and seeing him do all of that, it allowed me a certain mindset to grow up with a certain mindset around hustling, or just being an entrepreneur. Let me not say hustling, let me say being an entrepreneur. And yeah, and when I look at it, it's funny because my mom was a teacher, my dad was an entrepreneur, and me being a product of both of them, the route life has taken me has been one where I teach, using my passion being a musician. I teach music, but I have the entrepreneurial side to it. Obviously, Treble Clef Music Academy. So music being me, teaching being my mom, entrepreneur being my dad, and literally that has molded me into who I am today. So I give them a lot of it's a lot of gratitude when it comes to that, and just being thankful that they showed me that path. So yeah, that was a little background, kind of like background story to it. So yeah, agility. Okay, so yeah, we're talking about agility, and I think I'll take us all back to university. And since a lot of people know that Treble Clef is the company that I built, yeah, taking back to the beginning of it, it didn't just start automatically. Obviously, it was a process. So I remember when I started, I was still in Zim, just finished high school, and I would teach piano at a church where I was going to. I had probably like one person I was teaching, but for free, because this was part of the culture that was taught in the church, that you don't just learn something for yourself, but you need to pass on your craft. So if someone came up to you and said, hey, I would love to learn the guitar, I'd love to learn the drums, whatever it is, it wasn't a forced matter for you to teach them, but it would also help you in your craft, and you're also building the team in the church, the worship team, whatever. So I would teach here and there, whether it's a kid, whether it's a teen or an adult, whatever it is, teach them how to play piano or guitar. And I did that for free. I also then went to Botswana, and I also taught a few people there. From Bots, fast forwarding, went to Namibia, and that's where I did my university. So I remember there was a kid I was teaching for free, and I was with him for a few months, and this kid was now like actually playing, like knew all his chords, knew his progressions, knew his basic chords and all of that kind of jazz, and he was playing. And I remember his mom walked up to me and was like, look, you've taught my kid how to play. I can't thank you enough, but here is some money. And I remember saying, no, I can't take this. It's all good because I'm coming from a culture where we teach for free. We don't really like charge for teaching piano. But this lady insisted, and eventually I took the money, went home. That date hit me like, oh, so I can teach and get some money for teaching. Wow, okay. All right, so fast forward a bit more. A few other people asked to learn. At the church I was playing at that time in Namibia. I remember a few people asked to learn, and because at university, I was also part of a band with my best friends. Funny enough, childhood friends as well. People would come up to us and want to learn whatever instrument you were playing on stage. So that's where the whole idea of I can teach you and you can pay me. And you know, we're varsity kids, so always need that extra money. So that's where it pretty much started. And I remember going home and I was trying to think of a name, like what would I call this company? And I had so many stupid names. I had so many stupid names. I can't even remember some of them. It was Bass Clef School of Music. I think that was one of them. I've just forgotten what the other one was. But anyway, moving right along. So eventually came up with the name Treble Clef, and that's where it pretty much started. But I'll take us back a few steps as well. So during this time of teaching this kid for free, I'd also started sort of like an events company. So I would hire out sound equipment. And how this came to being was me being president of the peer counselors club or society at university. And I remember we would hire out or rent out PA systems. We would do disseminations on campus or wherever. And this one time, one of the people that we needed wasn't available for wasn't available for that particular dissemination. And I remember it didn't go well. So me being me, I remember telling our superior, Mr. Sinapenda at the time, that don't worry, I've got this. Hey, as Zimbabweans, we don't say no to things. And I was like, no, don't worry, I've got this. I'll find us a PA system. Hey, could I find a PA system on campus? Nobody had one. Anyway, so the crazy part of me, I took my university fees that my parents had sent me, and I went and bought 2 speakers and a mixer and the cables and 2 cordless mics. I remember that's what I bought in the first. The speakers were the tops. So we've got tops, we've got bass bins, etc. But those are tops. So anyway, went and did the next event, etc. Went well. The system was working. Mr. Penda was happy, but nothing was said about payment. In fact, at that point in time, I still wasn't in the mindset of payments, type of situation. So Miss Nependa, I think a week or so later, comes up to me in my office there by the Dean of Students, and she's like, Ty, where's the invoice for the PA system? I was like, invoice for what? What's an invoice? Who am I invoicing? And it hit me that, by the way, and now that I think about it, man, slow moments. I had a blonde moment there where, because I used to handle the invoices, like if people came or we needed to do an dissemination, we would get people to hand in their quotations or whatever it is, and then we choose the best one and go with that. So anyway, I ended up cut this long story short, gave Ms. Napenda an invoice according to one that I'd seen before. That's how I charged. And within a week, the payment had come through, and I was like, oh, wow. Okay, so this is a form of making money. Anyway, so I pushed on and carried on doing disseminations. And now the funny thing is, I wasn't just doing or hiring out my PA system to the peer counselors. There were other societies that would then come and rent out the PA system and etc. So I was now making a bit of money. And there were only 2 of us on campus at that particular time who were doing that. So you can imagine everybody's rushing. Ty, I need the PA system. I need the PA system. I need this. I need to do that. And I was there. I was ready. And it went good for about a year. And then, people started noticing. And the mentality we have as our people. Let's just say people started hiring out PA systems for a lesser amount than I was. So it kind of took business away from me, you know. It sucked at first, but I started seeing that the reason why people were like hiring out PA systems for sick prices is just so that they could get money to go and blast it over the weekend, you know. I was doing that for my rent, guys. Yo, we're good rough. But anyway, so after you, and this is something that anybody who gets into business or entrepreneurship will tell you. Once you start getting used to a certain amount of money coming in, you don't want to change that, and it sort of like forces you to think out of the box. So moment of agility, to think, understand, and move quickly. So what I then did, and now this is after that lady had paid me for the first time and had realized I could make money from teaching piano. I switched from providing PA systems to then teaching piano. The band was still going on, which was still good, but then I started teaching music as well. And I had a few clients, it was going well, they'd come to my house, I'd go to their houses. That's how it all began. And the good part about it was, with teaching piano and guitar and stuff, this is not a skill that you can just wake up in the morning and decide, I'm going to teach piano today. I'm going to go and teach someone how to play the drums. No, it's something that you develop over time. And even if you've been learning for a year, 2 or 3, you can't just wake up and say, I'm going to go teach. You have to be a seasoned player, seasoned musician, someone who understands the fundamentals of music. And not many people, especially in Namibia, at that particular time were like that. It was a handful of musicians. At the point when I was there, like literally live shows, they'd use backtracks. There's not a lot of live gigs. I think there were a few bands that were operational at that time. Probably 1 or 2 were like the bands that were like literally on every big stage on NAMM. Till me and my best friends kind of like got there as well, and we started our own band, and it's like, oh, there are these boys who are doing this and that, and yeah, it got good real quick. Anyway, so that was my moment of agility, having to switch from PA system to teaching music, just so that I could keep the income coming in, you know. It had to be quick, it had to be fast. I had to understand the dynamics of being able to do that as well. You know, it taught me how to register a company. It taught me how to do my financials. Started small. Easy to do financials when you've only got 6 students, right? But totally a different thing when you're operating with above 600-700 students, as we are now as a company. It's a whole different ball game. But once you know the basics, you know, type of situation, it becomes easier as you grow. Yeah. P.S. Just as a side note, I say type of situation a lot. People keep reminding me. And the other thing I say a lot is hey. Like every other sentence has a hey in it. But anyway, you'll get used to it with time. So yeah, that was my moment of agility, where I had to learn how to switch, and not just switch, but to switch quickly and effectively as well for myself, and also to learn the industry that I was getting into. You know, you have to be quick. You can't just jump into an industry that you don't know. But yeah, sometimes taking that jump will force you to learn quickly, you know. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so that was my moment of agility, you know. I'll read something that I wrote down whilst I was thinking about this. Whilst I was thinking about this whole moment, and I just remembered like moving from doing events, and I got to a point where I also left playing gigs with the band and stuff like that. And the events company was pretty cool now, because we're not just doing like events on campus. Like literally other companies or whatever would hire out the PA system for their events. So it was something that was great. And I remember there's a friend of mine, his name is Justy. He's still in NAM. And we had started this events thing pretty much at the same time. He had just started a little bit before me, maybe a month or so. And now I think it's called Mindscape Entertainment, or a Mindscape something. And it's now literally a big player in Namibia, you know. And I just look at him and I'm like, wow, bro, like I remember how we started with just one or two speakers. And I remember there would be some events that I'd have and I need like 2 or 3 more speakers, and I'd give him a call and be like, bro, I need 2 or 3 speakers, and he'd hook me up, or if he needed, we'd help each other like that. And now he's grown and he's big, but that consistency, you know, it's what's important, which is another topic we're going to talk about on another day, about being consistent. But anyway, I wanted to read something that I'd written down just to end this podcast for the day. I had said, if I had not decided to leave the event space, the playing at gigs, and fully focus on this baby being Treble Clef, I would not be where I am today. Sometimes in life, you're given moments of destiny that have to be taken within the moment. There are moments that unfortunately have window periods, and these can get shut and get saturated. Your spirit will always tell you when you're in such a moment. When such a window period is open, and it's up to you to recognize it, jump on it, and make it work. It's on you to be agile enough to maneuver into this new calling, this new venture, this new moment that could be life-changing. And at times, agility is painful. You'll have to stretch in ways you have never stretched before and do things you have never done. That new ground is a scary piece of land. But at the same time, it's a piece of land filled with the fertility, and the seeds you will sow will grow to amazing heights as long as you love and nurture them correctly. This week, I want you to think about moments in your life where you needed to be agile in one way or another. Did you give up? If yes, why? What would you do different? If that window is something that is not closed, why not try again? If it has closed, then what do you think you need to work on now, such that if that moment came again, you'd be ready for it? And in answering these questions, I just want to say, sometimes it'll feel like you can't prepare for these moments because they jump on you, right? But at the same time, there are certain character traits that you can work on that will always be key to your foundation for growth. And when these moments present themselves, you'll have a strong foundation for you to start on, to build on, to use as your anchor and self-support system. I say self-support system because in the beginning of these ventures, you will have to be your greatest cheerleader and daily motivator. Some of these traits are things like patience, kindness, tenacity, people skills, good judgment, trusting yourself, flowing with God, courage, discipline, gratitude, self-control, and being optimistic, to mention a few. These are the traits that will be called upon you when your moment of agility is required. And these are things you can develop way before the moment arrives. Take stock of your life as I take stock of mine, and let's see what we need to work on, what we need to develop, so we can thrive in our calling, in our business, in our relationships, and in our general life. So to end it, I'll end it with a quote, which is, agility, when acknowledged, accepted, and appreciated, will accelerate and aggregate amazing moments and atmospheres of access, accomplishments, and A-grade wins. That quote is by me. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining me on this podcast with our word of the day or the week, which is agility. And I hope you'll think about what I said. Take stock of your life. think about moments where you needed agility and what it took for you to be able to think, understand, and move quickly. And with upcoming situations, with upcoming goals, what do you need to work on to make sure that when these moments of agility come through, you are more than just ready? My name is Tendai Nyamayaro, and thank you for joining me on this podcast, The Journey. Goodbye.